Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be giving you a tour of ARK Labs and our workshop, and this is basically going to be a video to help track the progress of how far along we've gotten. I wish that I had recorded more videos before we've already built all this stuff, because we've already came a really long way. So first off, you noticed that in the video which we made rocket fuel, that the laboratory was located over here against this wall. And now there's an entire room dedicated to just the lab. But before I go into the chemistry section of our lab, I'm going to show you around our workshop. So on this side is one of the greatest upgrades that we've gotten, and that's our internet. That runs through a line under the ground over here, and that runs all the way to the inside section, which I'm going to show you later. Second off, because we moved the fridge that was here before into the lab, we now have this entire section behind the wall, which we plan to use for storage. And that's gonna greatly reduce the amount of stuff which is on this side. So hopefully we can get a little bit more stuff going on in here. If you have any recommendations for that, let me know in the comments. So here is our table, which is extremely dirty right now because we've used it to actually work on some vehicles. You can see there's oil. But this is the table that we normally put in front of the door to do any kind of experiments that fume a lot, because our fume hood is not functioning currently. Here is sort of my e-waste dump. I've got all kinds of various equipment. Got a multimeter, some old computers I've worked on, and I even have this IBM electric typewriter. Some sheet metal. Over here is the Yerf Dog, which is one of our earliest projects, and this is a quite powerful go-kart which we have modified to be more waterproof and aerodynamic. On this side of the room, you can see our cleaning shelf, which is very disorganized right now. It isn't typically like this, but we've been moving stuff around a bit, and it's chaotic, particularly because it's very hot. It's almost impossible to come out here and work at normal times unless you want to come out at like 1 o'clock in the morning and try to do chemistry. So everything in here has not really been cleaned except for the actual lab. Here is our workbench. This is where it starts to look a little bit better. And we do a lot of stuff here. You can see from just the wear and tear on this table, there is burn marks from welding, all kinds of metal shavings from this grinder. And this all gets cleaned pretty regularly with an air compressor. We just work a lot in here. But we've got our bench grinder, we've got the screwdrivers, drill bits, wrenches, more wrenches, or sorry, pliers. We've got some nuts and ratchets, we've got some clamps, our good multimeter, just where we keep most of the manuals. Got our angle grinder and battery chargers. Shelves fall in there a little bit. Down there's just some stuff for automotive. We've got all kinds of paints and sealants and Freon. We've got all kinds of connectors and nails. We've got our saws. This is the air compressor that I normally use. We've got a few stoves over here, which I occasionally use. We've got a butane and a propane stove. And over here is a pretty cool item, which we're gonna be using in the future. It's actually a huge monitor. It's not a TV. This is actually a menu board from Burger King, which was gifted to me when I used to work there by the manager. So I'm very lucky to have that. We're probably going to be using that as a like a control panel in the future for various projects, including the fuser, which we are looking to build. It's just the actual vacuum chamber is very expensive, so we will be doing that in the future for anybody that was wondering. All right, so it's time to show off the lab. So as we walk in, let's take a look to the right, and you can see some of our chemicals here. We got our potassium nitrate, some more potassium nitrate, sorbitol. This is sort of just our rocketry chemicals over here. We've got our BCDMH from our bromine video, and our sodium thiosulfate, which we use to neutralize the bromine. And right here you can see our sodium metabisulfite, which produces sulfur dioxide when mixed with water. Sorry, that took me a minute. Here's my radio code 102. It's a little bit dusty, it's been sitting here. Here's my vacuum pump. It's an old one, very old vacuum pump. We've got some leftover sugar from making rocket fuel. I accidentally poured too much. Here's our tripod mount for the microscope and telescope. You can see some of our glassware here. This is our droppers, which we're planning to use in our next bromine video. This is a much cheaper dropper with a cleaner. Here's all of the Griffin beakers, except for the one that's got the sugar in it. Here's our stands and spoons, as well as our other stands, measuring cup and separation funnel, as well as our vacuum separation funnel. Over here is our round bottom flasks, as well as the condensers, as well as another separatory funnel here. We've got a air condenser and a bunch of our plastic clamps and stoppers. Over here is our actually bluing kit. So this is for bluing guns, but I actually use it for my tools. I haven't gotten around to it yet just because it's so hot, but I plan to make most of the tools that I showed earlier blued, so that way they don't rust, because that's a big problem in here, which I'm about to show you. Over here is for our bromine video. We've got ampules. I'm very excited to make that video. It's just gonna be a lot better edited than the last one. The iMovie was just god awful to work with. It sat in my camera roll for weeks because I didn't really want to upload it, just because it was just not made very well, and it did receive a little bit of criticism, which is alright, but that's just because I did not explain things well enough. But over here is my 1,000 milliliter chemical resistant storage container, which I haven't used yet. And I actually have this tank here, which I was preparing to get a snake, but I need a new tank because the top is open, but it's a little bit crowded here. I had to use 2 hands for that because this is very heavy. This is an ammo crate, which has all of our electrical, or should I say high voltage components. Here's magnetron. We have a high voltage transformer there. You've seen a video of this one. Here's a little bit less dangerous high voltage transformer. This one doesn't produce enough electricity to actually kill you. Not that it's fun by any means, it's more like a taser. Here's a very large capacitor. Small capacitors. Here's actually an electromagnet. This isn't high voltage. Yeah, and that's all that's in there. Over here you can see this is actually our first telescope, which we had uploaded video or pictures of the moon from. It's actually a really cheap telescope, but this gives me the opportunity to show you our new mammoth. This bad boy at our local flea market not too long ago. This is an amazing telescope. It's a little hard to operate, but it works amazing. The eye port is here instead of on the end, and it has very precision ways to adjust, which is really awesome. Here's our tripod that we use to film with, and this is our sandblasting box, which in the future I'm planning on possibly repurposing into just some kind of glove box. I need to seal off the holes, and there's one in the back, which I could probably show you right there. And yeah, that's the not entirely sure how that would work in the standard sandblasting setup. I actually still have the sandblaster. I just am planning on repainting it white and most likely doing something in there. Over here we've got a new light set up so our reactions on this table can be seen better. And here's just some various notebooks that I've used. Excuse my poor handwriting, which is not great, but you can still read it. They're stuck together. Or not. We've got our dehumidifier, which is very important because here in Texas it is extremely absurdly humid. Everything that's in here rusts, it clumps together, and just like that sugar, I'm not sure if I'm even going to be able to use it because it's like crystallized. I don't have any kind of desiccator. So this is our fume hood, the makeshift fume hood. We haven't been using it recently. Just so you guys know, we've been doing all of our chemistry outside because I can actually plug in the fans here, but one of them is completely non-functional. I believe it might be this one. This one is non-functional, and this one, it makes some nasty noises, and it just kind of doesn't blow very hard at all out. We've got our fire extinguisher, which is essential. This is our sink, which is very nasty. You can see we've actually left like spoons on the table, metal spoons, and just from the humidity of the air, they've rusted spots on the table. We've got our ultrasonic cleaner, which is very, very useful. We use that quite a lot. for any kind of like stuck on grime. Right now our drain is just going into a bucket, and the bucket just gets dumped outside. We just don't put anything very harsh down the sink. We just use like Dawn dish soap and some of this like industrial grade hand soap. Before I show you the inside of the fridge, just look on the outside. This is something we're gonna have to fix. But all of these tiny spots that are rusty, you can remove all of the coloring except for these tiny spots, and it's because the paint has chipped. So what I'm gonna have to do is reseal the fridge and repaint it. But in our freezer, we've got ice cubes for our distillation. In both the freezer and the fridge, we've got baking soda traps, which help to neutralize any fumes or any kind of helps keep the moisture from forming. So this is gonna make some safety nut online yell at me, but I can't exactly blame them. This is the inside of my fridge, which isn't too horrible. I've seen laboratories worse, but the main issue here is just the separation of chemicals. There's not enough space anywhere in this lab to properly separate all of the chemicals by their hazards. So for example, we can't separate like you would want to separate acids and bases. Like for example, we've got sulfuric acid here with clear ammonia, but this is not open. And there's also sodium hydroxide here, which is a base, and this is sulfuric acid at 98%. So there is definitely chemicals here which are not really supposed to be stored together, but I haven't had any issues from that. They don't like fume or anything, especially with like the ammonia, it's sealed. I haven't got around to using that for anything. But here I have a little container that used to be alcohol, but I've repurposed it for our waste acetone, and we just store it in the fridge because everything out here is really warm and I don't want it to evaporate away. Over here, this is our impure sulfuric acid, and this is our excess sulfuric acid, which came out from the distillation that wasn't 98%. So I'm gonna have to redistill that. This is probably still purer than this. But here's some muriatic grade hydrochloric acid, and behind there is hydrogen peroxide, 12%, standard cleaning grade. So these these have been in here for a while. This is Narcan, and I used to carry these whenever I was in school because there was a lot of people overdosing, so I just still have them. I just keep them in here for no particular reason. Here is my chloroform, which I haven't made any more of yet, but I do plan to make more. Here is a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Don't even ask me where that lid is. I don't know. Or maybe I know what it is. I took the lid off of it so I could close up this because someone threw away the other lid. Anyways, here's our acetone bottle, which I use to actually clean anything that's like really nasty and oily on the glassware. It's basically my ideal solvent. Here's some denatured alcohol. It's what I used in the chloroform video to make the chloroform not form phosgene, which is not really the greatest method of doing that, which I'm going to correct next time. It just makes it slightly less pure because you'd want to use ethanol. Here's some mineral spirits, some regular medical grade hydrogen peroxide, and our small and big container of acetone, which is what I fill this with. And that's everything in the fridge. Okay, moving on to the underside here, we have our larger propane stove. This runs off of a 25-pound propane tank rather than a 2-pound. And here is my acetylene gas and my oxygen gas, which I just use for welding, cutting, and most in particularly glass blowing for making the ampules. So I've got that setup going. It's part of why it's taken me so long to upload either of the bromine videos, is I've just been waiting on the right equipment for ampuling. Here's the bucket. I got it from Tractor Supply. This is the hose that connects to the pump, and this side attaches to the distillation, and the water goes back into the bucket. And then obviously we'd use the other pump, which I'll show you in a minute. Over here is actually a very interesting part of my collection, which I didn't show off whenever I showed my uranium glass, but this is actually uranium ore, or really it's more of a uranium containing rock. It's not pure uranium ore. I'll show you with the radiocode here what I mean, because it's radioactive, but it is not scarily radioactive. Even the plastic on the outside of this bucket is really enough to keep the radiation particles from piercing through for the most part. Oh, I'll start off with the outside of the bucket. You can see, for the most part, actually, because this is a gamma spectrometer, this is as much as it is. There's some spots on the inside which are actually more like 25 counts per second. But still, this is pretty low in comparison to going over to my radioactive box and just holding it in there. So, but all of the radioactive elements that I own are primarily alpha emitters. Even though there's a cobalt-60 sticker there, I'm only planning on getting a exempt sample from the Nuclear Regulatory Committee. But anyhow, next I'm going to show you a quick glimpse into here. That's where my uranium glass is, and there is the americium and other uranium glass bits. The americium is kept in lead. Here's some calcium chloride, which I've kept in here to help keep it from being exposed to the moisture. Here's sodium hydroxide, pure. That's all I have in there, because something from the rocket fuel actually spilled, and it's really sticky. It's most likely corn syrup. I didn't point this one out. This is our CO2 gas, which I am planning to turn into a dry ice machine, and hopefully we can make our own dry ice soon. So this container is my sharps container. This is where I basically just put microscope slides and any kind of glass that breaks that could potentially hurt me. I also have a little bit of helium. The idea that I had with this is that I could attach a hose to here and fill this with helium, but I just figured that it would be too impractical because there's too many holes, too many spots to leak. It just really can't hold gas like that. But here's some helium, which I do actually still have a plan for in the future because of this thing. This is our foam cooler, very lightweight cooler, which I'm planning in the future to hook up a camera, a little antenna to, maybe a Geiger counter, and using this to basically launch our own weather balloon into the edge of space. Over here we got one of our lab coats and our leather apron, which I use for working with acids and other corrosives. Over here you can see the pump that I use to run the distillation. The little leg keeps falling off for some reason. We've got Lysol hand sanitizer, all kinds of cleaners. We've got eye protection, half-face respirator. We've got baking soda, which I used all of to neutralize the acids. We've got a bit of isopropyl alcohol. And here's our heating mantle. Alrighty, so this is going to be the shortest part of the video. This is the indoor segment of my lab, which is primarily my weather tracking station. We also have our weather radio, CB radio here. Got our Olympus CH2 microscope, which I've used to upload some videos. You can see. Oh yeah. It's a wonderful little vintage microscope. We've got the Stegapron gaming computer running our software here. We also have our whiteboard, and we've got some posters and our ARL map, and that's about it. Alrighty guys, I hope you enjoyed. Hope it was interesting for you, and hopefully we can look back on this and see how far along we've came. With that being said, have a great day. Like and subscribe.